Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Vietnam War. I'm Mike B, and today we're going to be kind of doing a really cool topic that I didn't know much about until recently. I realized that one of my fellow reenacting friends, Mr. Kinzel, he was actually a Marine and he was in Vietnam in 1967 and 68 during, fun times there. He was up in the northern part, which I'll make a video on, like the different corps, they call them, the different like I Corps, 2 Corps, 3, 4. So he was up north, kind of by North Vietnam, where it was a little bit more flat, kind of mountainous, but not like jungle per se, like it was kind of down south by Laos and Cambodia and everything. So I asked him, I said, so what kind of tanks did you use? Because he was a tanker, and what capacity were they used in? And he can speak for the first tanks of the 1st Marine Division in 1967 and 68. That's the unit he was in, and he was just, I think he was the driver or the gunner. I forgot to ask him that. I think they switched around too once in a while, but for the most part, he was in an M48 Patton. Now, if you don't know tanks very well, it's not a huge tank. It's actually kind of like a medium tank. And they didn't use the M60 a lot because that was designed to take out other tanks, and it was like a huge vehicle, and it'd be really hard to get around in the southern parts where it's more kind of mucky and stuff. So anyway, tanks weren't deployed everywhere, but they were still used in Vietnam. So M60s, for the most part, were not there. They might have been in some capacity later on with the Army for some reason, but mainly you're going to see the M48, especially with the Marine Corps. So he said that they would use it primarily in like an infantry support role, so what a tank's supposed to be. They'd go out on patrols and stuff with a lot of infantry. He said they had so much infantry around them so that none of the North Vietnamese or Viet Cong could get near them with an RPG. So he said they were pretty well protected, but again, they're still out, in the bush and in combat. So he said that basically the capacity they were used in is if they were like viable and they knew they probably weren't going to get stuck and it'd be actually a help to this, they'd go up and they would kind of roll behind the infantry a little bit, and then they would get calls on the radio saying, hey, here's a target, call it out, like a bunker or a house or some fortified position. And they would essentially just do what the tank was designed to do in the first place, is just provide support for the infantry. And there was a 90 millimeter gun on the M48, which is a pretty big round. And they said they would use high explosive, and sometimes for like a really reinforced bunker, they would use armor piercing and then throw an HE round in there. So they would go there and do that and soften up a bunch of positions, do preparatory fires, kind of like a barrage thing for mobile artillery. And stuff like that. And I'm just gonna kind of look at my notes. And then he said if they were not out on patrol and stuff, it would kind of be like it is today in Iraq, or it was when I was there, and pretty much the whole time, is where if they were on a base or in their compound, they would have their M48s in a hull down position, so only the turret is exposed, and kind of like the U-shaped things, and that way they could pull security on the outside of the compound, provide fire support if they were being attacked and whatnot. So that really hasn't changed that much, using a tank in the security capacity such as that. That's pretty interesting. And then, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so he said there was a few times where he did get stuck, like because it was kind of muddy, and they said during monsoon season they would pretty much just get up on the hill that was nearest to them, like a hill where they could overlook positions and provide support without having to move. And he said that if they did go on the roads, they would tear them up, so they tried to not do that, so like other vehicles, lighter vehicles, could get through. So that's kind of what they did during monsoon season, and that's understandable. You don't want to get a freaking tank stuck. You're pretty exposed if you do that, because you got to call a wrecker out or try to get it unstuck yourself. But I mean, it happens everywhere, so luckily it only happened to him a couple times. And then one really cool thing that he said was that he worked with the South Korean Marines, or ROK Marines, ROK Marines, quite a bit. And so you got the U.S. Marines and the ROK Marines working together. That's pretty cool. And he said they did 2 amphibious assaults with the tanks and the North Koreans and all that stuff. And he said that 1 tank per little boat that they had, like the landing craft. And then they said they got us as close to the beach as they could. They dropped the front gate, and we would kick it in the ass and get it up on the shore as far as we could. And then they put fording gear on the tank so they could do like 8 or 10 feet of water to get up there. So they actually did like amphibious assaults, probably going farther north in the Gulf or whatever. They probably went up and did that stuff. He didn't say exactly where, but to do that, that's pretty cool that he was involved with that. I didn't know they actually did that that far north especially with tanks. So that was really interesting. And then he said to kind of break it down, it's pretty similar to today. Let me scroll down a little bit. A tank platoon was 5 tanks, all right, because each tank had, I think, 4 people or 5. I forgot what an M48 crew is. So 4 or 5 people. So that's pretty much the same as an infantry platoon, but your tanks, it sounds like it's not a lot, but it is. You've still got roughly 20 people in the platoon. So heavy section was only 3 tanks. So light sections were 2 tanks. And then sometimes we would have a flame tank with us. So that would be more for your brush and bunkers and stuff like that. So they were still using flame tanks in Vietnam. That's pretty nuts. Ugh, that's nasty. They never ever went out 1 tank at a time, and that's very understandable. 1 tank is just asking, it's just a moving target, it's asking to get blown up and just destroyed or captured, worse, you know? So, and then I asked him kind of what they were wearing as far as tank crewmen, because I've never really known about that. Or I assumed they wore coveralls, right, like the people do now. But he said they actually just wore these jungle fatigues with a flak jacket and a communications helmet. Not this thing, I don't have a comm helmet. But it's like the composite, weird looking one, looks like kind of like a airplane helmet, but it's got it's got a microphone on it and stuff. So he said they would wear, a flak jacket, jungle fatigues, and a comms helmet. So that I did learn. That was really interesting. So, and again, that's 1st Tanks, 1st Marine Division in 1967 and 68. But I've seen a lot of pictures. After he told me this and we were having a conversation, I went and researched this a little bit, and it seems pretty concurrent with what happened throughout the entire time. Now, armor really wasn't used that much in Vietnam, so that's pretty insane because it just couldn't simply get places. So it's really cool to know Mike, and it's really cool to be a reenactor. We were talking a little bit, and he was saying that, we were just kind of exchanging war stories that weren't really about combat. They were just kind of like, oh, this is what we did to kill time and stuff, and all that stuff. So then, this is the first time I really asked him about, like, okay, what capacity did you actually do this in, like, for information purposes? I told him I'm making this video and stuff, and he told me, and he's like, oh, okay, yeah. So, let me know if you got any more questions about it. I can directly ask him anytime, and then I can make a video on it and tell you guys what he said. And hopefully we can learn something together, because, again, I'm not really too savvy on the use of armor in Vietnam. So very kind of cool for me to learn about, too, from a person who was actually there. And he's not one to make up stories. There's a lot of people that are. He did what he did, and he doesn't have to embellish anything, which is the kind of vets that I learn the most from, because then I go and, it's not that I don't believe them, but I go question it and kind of compare it with other things from facts and information online, and it seems to be pretty consistent. If you usually get people that are making up stuff, it's because they didn't do anything and they feel bad about not doing anything, and then they think that they have to embellish it to make it sound like they did stuff that they didn't, and then they end up essentially not telling the truth. And that really kind of sucks for, like, spreading misinformation, but Mr. Kinzel isn't one of those guys. He's pretty spot on, pretty cool, and very information based. And if he doesn't remember something, he's just like, I don't remember. But it's pretty cool to have this conversation with him. So it's nice that I can still talk to these guys. You should definitely talk to Vietnam vets if you can. They're still around. A lot of people are regretting not talking to World War II veterans, and there's very few and far between of those guys left. So I want to start talking to Vietnam vets about their experiences and stuff. They'll probably start opening up, a lot of them, because it's just like the World War II vets. They'll open up a little more as they get older and whatever. I mean, don't go up and be like, hey, how many people did you kill? Because I would just slap you in the face if you did that. That's dumb. But no, I mean, actually have a conversation with them, ask about their experience, when they were there and all that stuff. And it's a really good way to gather some intel like this. So thanks, Mike, for giving me this info if you're watching on YouTube. And hopefully we can get some more questions answered. Throw them down below in the comments. And we'll learn together on this topic. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you're new to the channel and you're not subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe and hit the like button on here and the notification bell. And then, keep following this little series. We'll be covering so much stuff. I'll be covering gear later on this year, weapons, all that stuff. Once it gets a little bit warmer out and I can actually go out and do stuff, we'll be having fun. So I appreciate everybody watching, and we'll see you on the next video.